In today's show, the Milwaukee Bucks reportedly have interest in Jerami Grant. Are the Blazers ready to make a move? Let's talk trades. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Available wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, it's trade season, and we're talking potential interest from the Milwaukee Bucks and Jerami Grant. Are the Blazers ready to make a move? And when they do make a move, are they likely to be buyers or sellers? We'll get into all of that. Plus, the NBA Cup wrapped up tonight, and I want to share my appreciation for Cup season and why it matters for the Blazers. I think this is beneficial but just the way the schedule works. It is meaningful for the Blazers. Let's get into the news. It is that time of year. It's sort of trade season where we got about 50 days of trade negotiating. And so before the deadline in early February. So this now is the time that you're going to hear the reporting and rumors. And I cannot stress this enough. Do two things. One, don't just read the little social media posts. Go to the source material to learn what they're talking about, if you're capable of it. Or listen to Locked On Blazers and I'll help you unpack the nuance. Because in the era of just reading some aggregator's post, you're not going to know as much as you really want to. So I'm gonna unpack it here. And here's the big thing you need to know. Jake Fisher, December 16th, reports for the Stein line. Jake Fisher reports that the Milwaukee Bucks have a number of players on their radar, including Trailblazers forward Jerami Grant. That's right. The Bucks are interested in Jerami Grant. What? But why? Why would they be interested in Jerami Grant? Let's rewind a little bit. Whoop, 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 whoop. Join me in the Wayback Machine. Eric Name on Monday, that would be on December 15th, reported that the Bucks have told teams as they head into this sort of trade season that they are looking to add to their roster. Not tear this thing down, but add talent. In fact, Name, who is a writer for the Milwaukee Bucks beat writer for The Athletic, continues to say that, while obviously those things could change, the Bucks are considering making yet another significant addition that might, quote, aid their chances of convincing Giannis Antetokounmpo to stay. That actually is not a direct quote, but I'm paraphrasing there. The Bucks, and I've mentioned this before, and I kind of I give them credit for being super aggressive at all times. They traded all the stuff they basically could trade to get Jrue Holiday. When that era ran its course, they traded all the stuff and Jrue Holiday to get Damian Lillard. When Damian Lillard got hurt, they waived Damian Lillard, stretched his contract, signed Miles Turner, kept just at every turn, kept pushing forward and deeper and just going, doing as much as they could to be as competitive as possible. They've probably, quite frankly, run their course. But I think these two things are in tandem here. Eric Name, who's plugged in Milwaukee, and if you follow the Bucks, you know that Name is a really good reporter. If you haven't followed the Bucks, I'll tell you right now, is a really good reporter. If the Bucks are sort of signaling that they want to be a team that is adding players, it is somewhat confusing. But this is sort of the nuance here. Do the Bucks actually want to add players, or are the Bucks sort of not willing to, unless Giannis Antetokounmpo comes out and says, trade me, they're not willing to go down that path. So when people call, they say, no, we're not shipping out Miles Turner. We want to add talented players. If you want to give us good players, we'll take them. obviously there could come a time when Giannis gets traded. But I think the Jerami Grant thing, with a connection between the Bucks and the Blazers, follows sort of an important thread that if you pull it long enough, it is easy to see it straighten itself out. As Fisher notes in his reporting in the Stein line, the Blazers, if there is a Giannis trade, and they do end up trading Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Blazers are very well positioned to get involved, potentially because they have 2 Bucks pick swaps in 28 and 30. They have like sort of partial control over the Bucks 2029 pick, certainly more control over the Bucks, who straight up do not have that pick. And so like if there's a bigger trade, the Blazers could be involved. If the big thing happens in Milwaukee, they could be involved. But if the Bucks do head this sort of more additive route, they say like, hey, we want to get, this team needs to be better. Like the Bucks stink without Giannis. They might not be very good with him, but the roster's just not good enough. As fun as Ryan Rollins is, and as good as Kevin Porter Jr. has been for them, and your boy Derry Bird, they're not quite good enough to be like truly competitive, or even like, normally competitive. They lost by like a cajillion points to the Nets earlier this week. More on sort of the Bucks plan here in the moment, because I think this is the nuance that you can truly unpack. But there's a notable line here that's not going to be shared on social media because it's not as juicy from Jake Fisher. He says, in the nearer term, it remains to be seen if the Bucks could even get traction on a Grant pursuit if they wanted to, since the 31-year-old has emerged as a favorite of Trailblazers general manager Joe Cronin. The Blazers don't want to trade Jerami Grant. He's an important part of what they do. I mean, he's arguably been their second best player this season. I probably wouldn't go that far, but like you could make a compelling case. You can make a very compelling case that Jerami Grant's been their second best player. I wouldn't get into a screaming match with you. I probably wouldn't agree, but like that, I think there's a very real case to be made for that. And like, moreover, Joe Cronin gave Jerami Grant $160 million. He hasn't emerged as a favorite. Joe Cronin has always liked him. He traded for him, and when he traded for him, he it was part of the sort of the back end of the CJ McCollum trade, where he created this like perfect trade exception in order to acquire Jerami Grant, knowing that Jerami Grant was going to enter free agency. And when he entered free agency, Joe Cronin gave him 5 years, $160 million. And then when teams came calling last summer, and it's hard to know exactly how far those trade talks really went, but there's been some reporting that the Lakers and the Blazers got fairly far down the line with those trade discussions, although I think there's been some pushback locally about how far that went, but that didn't happen at the time. That happened way after the fact. So the nuance of when things are reported matters to me as well. But so like, let's say he resisted trade overtures for Grant last summer, and then like rode through a brutal season with Grant, and then when Grant was like pretty clearly unhappy in his exit interview, they figured it out. Jerami Grant's been really good. He hasn't emerged as a favorite. Joe Cronin's always loved him. This has always been his dude, right? And Grant has been really good this year. And I'll talk about this more in the second segment, but like the Blazers, I don't think they're in the business of getting worse right now. I don't think they're in the business of getting worse right now. I will touch on that more in a moment. But I think like, remember what Jerami Grant is, right? He's a pretty good player who's probably a little bit overpaid, and he's owed $70 million in over the next 2 seasons, about $34 and then $36 million after this, the following season and the one after. That'd be the 26-27 season and then 27-28. So like Jerami Grant's got a bunch of money on the books, and he's going to be 32 and then 33 years old. That's not like ancient by any means, even by NBA standards, but that's the wrong side of 30. That's older, and typically you project, some level of drop off as guys get into their 30s. Grant has been way better this year than last year, perhaps fine wine. But that's what Jerami Grant is, right? He's a player that is probably a little bit overpaid and has this contract that extends multiple seasons at relatively big money in an era where that relatively big money and multiple seasons is like increasingly unappealing. So let me bring you back to the present, where the recent past, where Sam Amick last Friday reported that the Bucks had done some due diligence on Zach LaVine in Sacramento. What is Zach LaVine if not a talented but overpaid player? And Amick also reported that the Bucks had shown some interest in Zach LaVine in the past at prior deadlines when he was still with the Bulls. Jake Fisher speculates, more so than reports, more speculates in his piece that came out on Tuesday, that the Bucks had previously shown interest in Andrew Wiggins, who's now with the Miami Heat, and DeJounte Murray in New Orleans, who's still recovering from an Achilles tear that he sustained in January of 2025 and is yet to play and is probably still a few months out from returning. But you look at Wiggins, bigger contract, but you would have to pay Wiggins into the future, right? And maybe that's not as appealing. And DeJounte Murray, kind of a little bit of a distressed asset because of the injury and his price tag, although his contract's not that onerous. So but I think what you're seeing here is that the Bucks, like if you kind of peel back all the onions here, is like they're not exactly like big game hunting. What they're hunting for is, can they find players that are perhaps overpaid or who have contracts are not particularly coveted around the league, and can they acquire those players whose maybe production doesn't match their money and kind of get rid of some of their bad money, say, be it Kyle Kuzma on the back end, and not have to pay big. I think importantly, as Dan Feldman of Dunked On noted in one of his newsletters this week, is that the Bucks can only trade 1 first-round pick this year, but they can trade 3 first-rounders to get into the offseason. There is a time coming up in the offseason when they could really cash in and make a big swing. But for now, because it seems like, based on the reporting here, LaVine, Wiggins, Murray, Grant, it just seems like the Bucks are after a certain flavor of player, and Jerami Grant happens to fit that flavor because of his contract and because of probably the general perception of his trade value around the league. But it seems like from the actual reporting that the Bucks haven't even really engaged in those talks, and that the Blazers probably wouldn't be willing to engage in those talks at all. So this trade rumor that makes for a good headline when unpacked with the knowledge that we actually have makes sense about why the Bucks are certainly interested, because that's what they're sort of pursuing, but not that the Blazers would play ball. But I think it brings us to a bigger question about sort of where the Blazers are. Are they going to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? Join me in that second segment. We will talk about just that. How will the Blazers pursue the transaction season? Join me in that second segment, won't ya? First, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by SKIMS. They're making really comfortable underwear. SKIMS makes underwear for everybody, not just femme underwear, but also more masculine cuts as well. Listen, they're super, super comfortable. If you've ever heard anything about SKIMS, probably the number one word you have heard is that they're super comfortable. So if you are in the need of switching to a more comfortable and more versatile underwear, well, SKIMS is probably the place you need to start. It's the one upgrade that is going to make your life just simpler. They're designed to feel good, to fit right, and actually stay put. So no slipping, no sagging, no adjusting. You're wearing genuinely great underwear that makes you feel confident and comfortable. SKIMS was kind enough to send me over a few pairs, and here's the compliment I'll give to them. I don't notice them. I put them on in the morning. They're incredibly comfortable, and then I can go about my day doing whatever it is I might happen to be doing. So, if I'm going to the gym and working out, if I am just at work doing my job, or if I'm running errands and doing family things, I am not considering my undergarments, because that's the worst thing that can happen to you during your day vis-a-vis your underwear. You just not noticing them is the key. So get SKIMS, find that comfort, and be able to ignore them all day long. And you can shop SKIMS Men's now at skims.com. When you place your order, choose podcast in the post-purchase survey and select my show from the drop-down menu to let them know I sent you. Plus, the SKIMS Holiday Shop is open, so if you're looking for the perfect gift this season, SKIMS has you covered. All right. So, I think this sort of reporting around the Bucks' interest in Jerami Grant gets to sort of my larger question. What are the Blazers going to do? How will they approach this trade deadline? Are they going to be buyers or sellers? I think if you pay close attention to what this team is sort of up to and how they have operated, the answer to that question is obvious and doesn't, to the point where it doesn't really need to be posed. they're not going to be sellers. Not in any meaningful teardown type of way. They're not going to flip Jrue Holiday for young parts. That would be a stunner. They're probably not going to trade Jerami Grant. If history tells us anything sort of about the Joe Cronin-led Trailblazers, is that one, they're relatively unlikely to make an in-season move. When they have made in-season moves, it's mostly been during the sort of tear-down era of this team. They've made plenty of off-season moves and off-season trades, but like in-season, after they sort of the most of the moves during the Joe Cronin era that were in-season moves were sort of the heading towards tanking variety, tearing down the roster to get it cheaper, to get worse, to lose games, to build back up. Once they've sort of been in the upswing the last couple of years, they've been relatively quiet at the trade deadline, if not, a trade for Delano Banton or absolutely nothing in a couple of back-to-back trade deadlines. So they're unlikely to make just a move, period, because that's sort of how they've operated. But if they were to get involved in trades, because, Matisse Thybulle's entering is an expiring contract and Rob Williams is an expiring contract. So perhaps you want to move off those players just because if you don't want to re-sign them or don't think you'll be able to re-sign them, then it might be it might behoove you to make some flavor of deal, right? Because then they walk for nothing. And that's, maybe not the best outcome, although I think there's an argument to be made often that like just letting guys walk and as opposed to sort of like taking a flyer on someone you add that has like years left in their contract is maybe not worth it. But like that's the move that sort of the obvious move they would make as buyers is adding players to the mix, because that has kind of been their MO most consistently. So I think it's clear, just based on the fact that the Blazers, how they've operated and sort of their stated goals. They want to be competitive. They want to get into the mix. They're going to go for it. You look at how they operate all of last season, as though when it felt like, eventually, they were struggling, and they're eventually going to tear it down. And they didn't. They went for it. They chased it. They chased 37 wins, and they sort of vaguely chased the 10th seed in the West. And this year, they're going to do the exact same thing. So whether they're going to be buyers or sellers, the way they have operated is they would rather be buyers. The thing that they have often prioritized in trades, and I don't think this is universal, and I've joked in the past about how Joe Cronin hates trading for draft picks, and like some of my literalist listeners have pointed out that sometimes he's traded for draft picks, and I really appreciate a literal interpretation of a joke. There's nothing that feels better. But like, typically what Cronin has prioritized is players under multiple years of team control, because it gives you a little more runway to figure out what they're going to be. In fact, if there is an example of maybe an additive trade, and I think this is not exactly it, but because it was kind of two trades that got roped into being one trade. But when the Blazers traded away Josh Hart, they ended up getting, a Cam Reddish and a draft pick back. And it was really like the sort of prize of that was not Ryan Arcidiacono or Cam Reddish or the draft pick, or Ryan Arcidiacono, Cam Reddish, but it was the draft pick. Like it was with the 23rd pick in the draft. It ended up being Chris Murray, but the draft pick itself is a separate thing from who you use the draft pick on, right? Like, but in that trade, it ended up being a multi-team trade. The Blazers also sent out some second-round picks and ended up acquiring Matisse Thybulle in a multi-team deal. So, like, that was the closest thing to an additive trade. And even then, it was Matisse Thybulle entering restricted free agency under some sort of level of team control. If you look at the sort of the trades, even the bigger trades, the Damian Lillard trade, it's like Malcolm Brogdon, multiple years when he was acquired. Rob Williams, multiple years when he was acquired. DeAndre Ayton, multiple years when he was acquired. Toumani Camara, multiple years when he was acquired. Jrue Holiday, under contract for several years when he was acquired. Like, the Blazers have valued this. So if you're looking at if they're going to be buyers or sellers, like, first of all, they're likely to be buyers, but the type of thing that they have prioritized is players that are under contract for several years. So if you're looking at that type of thing, and why I don't think it would be, I don't think they'll look to trade Jerami Grant, one of their better players this year. I think Jerami Grant's been straight up good this year. even if they were to get into a bigger move, the thing that they would prioritize is not the sort of tear down draft picks type of thing. Like, they're going to push forward, and even if they get a little bit worse in a deal that they might make, say they trade Rob Williams and they just don't have enough centers. They just don't have enough bigs because, Hansen's not ready and Duapri's not a real center. Like, say they trade Rob Williams and they don't end up with an NBA center. They might do that, but the player that they would assume the type of player they try to acquire is a player under team control who fits multiple, who could fit into the future, or that type of thing, and or give them space to sign another center, maybe who's on the free agent market, who could just be a big body type of thing. Like, if they do end up being a team that gets a little bit worse in the short term, it'll be prioritizing something else in the long term, because that's just how they've operated. So when you think about the reporting that comes up over the next couple of weeks, the Bucks are interested in trading for Jerami Grant, or this team is interested in Rob Williams, this team could use Matisse Thybulle, this team. Think about what the Blazers' priorities are here, how they would operate, how they have operated, and what they would want to take back. They're not going to take back a whole bunch more money because they're not going to go into the tax. They're not going to be a dumping ground for necessarily bad contracts, right? They're going to prioritize players that can play, and if the safest bet based on how they've operated is that they do very little at the trade deadline, is that they're neither buyers nor sellers, that they're observers, unless a larger trade comes up and they can kind of hop in the sort of mix with Milwaukee. So I think the reporting around Grant just got me thinking about how to think about all of the reports you hear moving forward. Hopefully some of my unpacking there helped you get into that space while my light keeps going out in the studio along the way. Let's talk about the NBA Cup. I enjoyed watching the NBA Cup this evening. I enjoy the whole dang NBA Cup experience. Let's talk about all of that to close the show. Join me in that third segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Game Time. It is the place to buy tickets, no matter what you're going to. But say you want to go to the World Cup. Well, it's coming back. It's going to be North America for the first time since 1994. 48 teams for the first time ever. It's going to be massive, but let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch. It's finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. When you're searching the Game Time app, all the prices include the full upfront fees. So what you see is what you get. Pricing, when you're browsing, you can pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting, no fine print. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets. For every match, every concert around the World Cup, and all of the events surrounding it. All of it's going to be there with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off with Game Time. Today's show is also brought to you by Robinhood. Nobody knows your money better than you. And Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do, locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money, trades stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all in one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locked On Blazers. If you are an everyday listener to this program, I cannot recommend the Everydayer Club more to you. Truly. If you were living that everyday lifestyle, join the Everydayer Club. You can take your commitment up a notch. You get an ad-free audio feed for this podcast. You get access to a members-only Discord chat. It's this show without interruptions, all for $5 a month or $50 a year. You can go to lockedonblazers.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Here's a hot take for you. I like the NBA Cup. I think it's cool. I think it's good. It has stakes. It has a little bit of beef. It has high quality basketball games. Those are all things I like about basketball. A little bit of drama, a little bit of angst between two teams, a little bit of something to play for, and good hoops. I love it. That Blazers game, when they had a chance to advance from the group of death in the West and make the quarterfinals of the Cup against the Spurs, that game had juice. I had, Blazer fans were emailing me and excited about the game. I thought that in the arena that night, there was a lot of juice in the building. Like, people were excited. It was heavily anticipated in a way that a regular season game just straight up hasn't been in a while for this team. And the team, the Blazers, Thiago Splitter, the players, admitted the game had stakes, right? And like, the raised stakes are completely artificial. Like, don't get it twisted. They're fake. They're completely fake. They're made up. It's all bogus. But whether artificial or not, they function the same way, right? Like, whether they're totally created for television, and they are, the players still play with a little bit of urgency. Players take them and teams take them more seriously, even if they are a total, sort of artificial construct. They create the stakes, and we like stakes. I thought the semifinals in Vegas were darn good basketball games. Magic Knicks was great. I thought OKC in San Antonio was probably the best regular season game of the year, best game of the year, period. The final 25 seconds of that game were pretty awful to watch because of the NBA teams, and the Blazers are part of this problem, and obsession with fouling up three. But I guess that's the trend now, and we're going to do it, and it's going to make the end of games really brutal. Mark Dagnall freaking lost an NBA playoff game because he chose to foul up three and still does it. So bless him. But like, that game, like, Wemby was juiced for it, playing the champs, playing that team in that atmosphere. It had stakes. It was a meaningful game in December, and the NBA is like itching for games to be meaningful in December. It's not nothing that the games are meaningful in December. Like, and the Knicks tonight, when they claimed the cup, when they claimed the title, won a championship, the Knicks' first championship. No, just kidding. It's not a championship. It's an NBA Cup trophy. But like, they celebrated. And the joy was maybe a little bit muted, because like, they know that it's the middle of December and they've got a long way to go, and the Knicks want to win the freaking title. But like, they celebrated on the court. It was clearly an emotional game. It was well played. I mean, the Knicks kind of just like won the game in the first 3 minutes of the fourth quarter, and it was just like over. But it was a quality back and forth competitive basketball game. And like, I thought Mitchell Robinson was great and brought it. I thought Tyler Kolek was great and brought it. I thought Steph Castle for the Spurs had a monster game and continues to show that he's really a special player. And like, OG Anunoby was awesome. He's probably the best player on the court. Jalen Brunson's good. Missed a lot of shots. Was good. Like, but I just that game mattered to the Knicks, and it had a little bit of juice. They probably got to get it out of Vegas. They got to just put it in normal arenas. I know before the game, Adam Silver said in his interview, I believe the game was on Amazon, on the television interview, that they're considering taking the championship to historic college venues. And it's just like, Adam, how are you so bad at this type of thing, my man? Like, just put it in, like, if this game was in Madison Square Garden for the Knicks, because they, by virtue of, I guess they had the same records, so you have to have a tiebreaker. But if that game, but we could have figured that out. It would have been simple. If the game had been in Madison Square Garden, you don't think this game would have been rocking and even way freaking cooler, right? Like, it would just like put it in the home arenas, get rid of the funky floors that are dangerous. The games have stakes. They're fun. That's not nothing for December basketball in the NBA. Diehards, freaks, many of you listening to this program that are just like tuned into basketball are going to always love it, or just are going to enjoy regular season basketball. But I think turning it up a little bit, giving other people reasons to turn in, is valuable. And just for me, like, I enjoy the Cup games more, and I'm already a freak who watches a million League Pass games as is. But from a Trailblazers angle, not advancing in the Cup has real freaking benefits. The Blazers, they basically play, they over the course of 10 days, play twice. their longest break of the year other than the All-Star break. There's real value for teams that don't make the NBA Cup. Not like, obviously you're still going to have to play your 82 games, et cetera, et cetera. The only teams that play 83 are the teams that make the championship. Everyone else you're stuck on 82. But like, stuck with 82, you don't get to play that lucky 83rd. But like, you play about 30% of your schedule prior to the cup, the semifinals and the finals of the cup. And then you get a real break, not just like downtime and practice time. And the Blazers practice today on Tuesday. They'll practice again on Wednesday ahead of their game on Thursday. They got to practice over the weekends heading into their game against the Warriors on Sunday. But it lets guys get healthy. It gives you, it gives sort of a mental break from the challenging NBA grind. The whole dang deal has value for teams that miss it. So like the cup is fun hoops, good basketball, and for the teams that don't make it, it's like an actual reprieve from the slog of the NBA season, because this is like from now until February, you're not going to get this break, and now there's a little built-in, like a little winter break for the teams, for the 28 teams that aren't involved in or the 26 teams that aren't involved in the semifinals. So it's I like the cup. I enjoy the cup. I think it rocks. I think it's fun. I was pretty skeptical of it when they introduced it, because I thought it was just too gimmicky, and it is gimmicky. I like, it is a weird gimmick, right? Like the funny courts and stuff. But like the gimmick works on me, and I'm enjoying watching the games. And I enjoyed the quality of basketball. And I think like upping the quality of basketball in the regular season is just so fun, because when you get to the playoffs, the quality is great, but like it's a long road there. And sometimes regular season games can just be kind of choppy, and you don't get the absolute best execution and focus from teams. Like, it's just the reality of it. And I think because you give NBA guys 2 days off and then play these semifinal games, like they can really lock in and play high level basketball. It's really good stuff. It was really good stuff. The whole experiment is really good stuff. I look forward to watching it again in the future. Okay, that's going to do it for today's program. Come back for tomorrow's show. Peony Burrell, the chronologer, the guy who's been tracking Denny better than anyone else for Denny Avdia's entire basketball career. Peony Burrell is going to join the show. The Denny expert, the guy. Come! I'm super excited for that one. Come back for tomorrow's show. Hopefully by then, the lighting in my studio won't be going extremely wonky. Join me for that. And then also tell your friends about the program. That's what we do 5 days a week, where we get podcasts, also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I will talk to you soon.